All right. Welcome to episode 57 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. Before we get into the conversation, two quick shout outs here. Stream to See is an all natural mineral based sunscreen and personal care products company. They're deeply dedicated to making a difference in the seas, rivers, and lakes, as well as what goes into your body. They don't put in unnecessary chemicals, estrogen mimickers, or other not so great stuff found in typical personal care products. So check them out, streamtosea.com. When you use the code JBP, you get yourself 10% off your order. And then secondly, longtime friends of the podcast, fellowshipbrand.com, premium men's grooming products. These guys are just too kind. They sent me another care package the other day to try out Nobleman, a new scent they just put out. It's unique, organic, and it's just, there's some really cool people running this company, man. So go to fellowshipbrand.com, use the code JBP at checkout, get yourself 10% off your order. My guest today is Howie Zales. He's an Emmy award-winning camera operator who turned his passion for television and broadcasting into several business endeavors. He's created HJZ Productions. For over 20 years, he's been addressing the needs of professional level sports broadcasting crews and staffing in the New York market. His business grew to multi-million-dollar level, and he's a nationwide provider of top talent. He and his team founded Veridity Entertainment, which focuses on staffing in the non-union markets. And since COVID, he's pivoted to doing live streams and professional sports, corporate interviews, religious services. The guy's an entrepreneur. He's business-minded. He's fun to talk to. And now he's on the podcast. Howie, welcome, my friend.
Jake, how you doing, man? Super grateful to be here.
Dude, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been a lifelong sports fan. You know, I've gotten to watch so many cool events on TV, and then to meet you and to start talking about and really starting to think about it through the lenses in which you've seen the world, or at least many events like the Olympics, like the Triple Crown, like Sunday Night Football, WWE, MLB, NBA, like so many. The list just goes on and on to things that you've covered. There's a lot here to unpack, but before we do that, why did you decide to get behind the camera? What's that trajectory like?
Yeah, so cool story. I was in 11th grade, and I was grooming myself to play professional baseball all throughout high school, and I knew I needed a backup, and there was one elective class, and the description was trip to NBC studios in New York City, watch a TV show being taped. That can't be bad, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of fell in love with TV during that course, and I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to combine sports and baseball, especially, and my new love for TV into what I was going to do as my career.
Oh, that's great. So then, what is the education path of somebody who's getting into the camera operation, or was it camera operation that was in your head originally, or was it just to be around these types of things?
Yeah. So I grew up going to Yankee Stadium, Madison Square Garden, Shea Stadium. So I was always around sports, and I would always watch the camera people. I'd watch what they were doing and how they were working. So it was always an interest. And so yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to do. And I targeted colleges that had good TV programs that let you touch the equipment hands-on right away. And I ended up going to a college in upstate New York, Plattsburgh State University. And so that was the trajectory. But you don't need to go to college for what I do. It's absolutely 100% not necessary. It's just, that's just what I did.
How does one acquire the education then without that's typically our default operating system is you must go to college, you must get a 4-year degree and a piece of paper that tells you that you can or can't do something. What would be the alternative path then?
So about a year ago, I started a course called the Broadcast Sports Course and wrote a book. Our good friend Bedros was the one that kind of convinced me to do it. I never thought I would write a book, but I started a course on how to get into the television sports industry because it's so niche and no one knows how to do it. And who are the clients? Who do you call? And how do you learn, right? There's no training ground in our industry. So I started this course and wrote a book and launched it, and then COVID happened.
Oh no.
It was a 2-day boot camp with a 6-month like apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So we were going to pair you up with other camera people, other audio people, whatever your job, whatever you want to do in the business, we were going to do that. So when COVID hit, we kind of had to do a little pivot, and we had to do away with the training, the in-person training um, apprenticeship part. But we're going to go back to that this fall.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And I definitely want to dive back into that book, that course here in a little bit. That's super interesting. Like, but I want to also get your perspective on working in the industry for as long as you have. I mean, do you still, are you still on film crews, or do you kind of do the entrepreneurship? You manage that
Yeah,
company now?
I've started to step way back. I traveled for over 20 years with the World Wrestling Entertainment. I traveled with over 20 years with NBC Sports, and I think I did my last show. I did the Kentucky Derby this past May, and I think I'm done.
Can you for folks like me who have never like worked on a crew at one of these events, what's it like? What's it like a day in the life at the WWE or one of those big events that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so let's say like the Kentucky Derby, right?
Yeah.
There's 55 cameras on the Kentucky Derby, and that's just camera people. So every camera has a replay machine. So it could be 15 to 20 replay people. There could be another 20 audio people. So the crew is immense because it's a huge production that's on the air for the entire day practically. So and it's not just showing up to the event, right? You have to do your homework. You have to know what horses are in the race, what jockey is riding which horse, which trainer owns which horse, and which owner owns each horse, and which trainer trains the horse, and what the relationships are. So when the director's asking for a shot, you know right away this is where you have to go and what you have to do. Similarly with baseball or hockey or basketball, you have to know the storylines, what's important to that game before you even get on site.
100%. And then you're like, are there separate people that have to break down all the equipment? Are you responsible for your own equipment? Like, what's that like?
Yeah. So handheld cameras, right? I usually do a handheld camera. So we basically take it from the TV truck, bring it and plug it in, and when the show's over we walk it back, and that's it. The big hard cameras are broken. They're like 5 or 6 pieces, and they're extremely heavy, and they have to be broken down, wheeled back to the TV truck. Cases get opened up, the engineers go through, make sure everything's there. So yeah, you're setting up, you're shooting, you're breaking down, and it's the whole thing.
The whole deal. And, I said in the intro that you were an Emmy award-winning camera operator. What does that mean? Like,
Yes.
take me through that experience.
So I have done a lot of Olympics, and for the Beijing Olympics, our team won an Emmy award for our gymnastics coverage.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was it covering the gymnastics in Beijing that year? It was what an incredible event, man. The USA obviously it did amazing. That was Simone Biles and all that, right?
Nastia Liukin was that's before in Simone's time.
Oh, that's right.
She won the all around, and the team won the gold medal. So being with that, and I do a handheld camera, so I was like right there when they won their gold medal, and it was an awesome experience. And same in London. And I've been fortunate enough to do figure skating for the Winter Olympics. In the Italy Summer Olympics, before anyone really knew who Michael Phelps was, I was a camera operator that pulled him out of the pool when he won his first race and subsequent races after that. So it was like, it's awesome. People would give their right arm to be that close to sporting events. It was awesome.
Well, 100%. Like there's a part of me that growing up that really wanted to be around either music production. I considered going down to Florida. There was a university down there that does, it's very specific to
Full Sail.
Yeah. It's very specific to audio visual. It was really, I had my application in, like I was really like, I was playing guitar or bass guitar in a band I was
Right.
like, yeah, that's probably how I'll be around that. Then maybe I can go into, big arena shows or, be around sports or, and I chose a different path, but I'm just this topic, I'm just so curious in. So before, before we get into the business
Yeah, no
uh,
worries.
side of things, man, I just, what was it like, or what is it like being around the WWE? That's something that I want to unpack a little bit because I'm an old school like WCW, WWF fan when I
Okay.
was a kid. I don't pay much attention to the WWE now. I have to be honest. But the interesting storylines, backdrops, there's a lot of stuff going on. I recently saw a production and like all the fans were virtual. They're
Yeah, yeah,
electronic. So like
yeah.
maybe take me through what it's like covering WWE and then what's going on with the WWE right now with this live
Yeah.
stream situation.
Yeah, I went to the first WrestleMania as a kid, not even knowing really what it was at the time. But it's funny that I've been to like worked at over 20 of them. Um, it's fun. I did a camera where I did all the backstage interviews and fight scenes and move the storylines along. So it was a lot of fun. It's one big family. Everyone travels together for 50 weeks a year. So the wrestlers are friends and family. The crew are friends and family. We all know about each other's families and kids, and it was a great experience.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that, that's cool, man. So you became an entrepreneur in this space, right?
Yeah.
So who were you working for originally, and then when did you decide you needed to go independent? And take me through that maturation arc.
Yeah, so back in 2000, I was a camera operator, and a good friend of mine who worked at MSNBC at the time, Imus in the Morning, was a radio host, and he would do his show from MSNBC, and once in a while they would take a show on the road. So I forget where the show was being recorded from. My friend Brian called and said, "Hey, Howie, do you want to work this radio show? But it's going to be here, not at the studios." I said, "Sure." And he said, "By the way, do you have any friends?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." So I called up a few camera people friends and got them hired. And he said, "Would you mind just paying them for us? Just send us one invoice." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then another show happened, and I was like, "Okay, this is a business here." And it just slowly evolved. And we signed a union contract in like 2005 in the New York area, and then we just been adding cities, adding contracts throughout the entire country.
Well, so the world's certainly changed a lot with live events to now streaming. Well, I guess it used to be on just television. Now live
Mm-hmm.
events are streamed all over on every single device in the world. And then
Totally.
the way that we ingest television, the different platforms, the services that we use dramatically changed, at least in the last 10 years.
Oh, absolutely.
So like how has that change impacted folks working in the live TV or in the camera space, or like help me understand that?
Yeah, so it's actually opened up and provided more jobs because um, it's expensive to put on a TV production. TV trucks are expensive to rent. The crews are expensive. So the smaller sports usually don't get televised. The smaller track and field events, the smaller boxing events don't get televised. But now with the world of streaming, if it costs $200,000 to do a show, now we can do it for 50, and these smaller events get seen on streaming platforms. It's providing more work for TV crews. The athletes that are in those events are now getting known because they're on the internet, and it's just a win-win situation for everybody.
So then, when you become a quote unquote accidental entrepreneur, right? Like
Yeah.
you're kind of going into like, what was your philosophy in growing and scaling this business? And yeah, I'll just start
So
there.
so my first business, HJZ Productions, once I got it started, I knew that I had to make it grow because I knew I needed a fallback. There's back issues in my family. I had several concussions from working. I got hit in the head with a foul ball. I got tackled twice on one college, one NFL sideline. So I've gotten hurt. And I knew I needed a backup. So I knew I needed to take this business from just kind of providing a little bit of income to being fully sustainable. And then I got the idea about 3 years ago to start another business because, the governments were really cracking down on not having free independent contractors. Everyone should be paid as an employee, right? So HJZ Productions would hire all of the local people that the clients wanted. And then we were offering to our clients, anyone that you're traveling in that is part of your production, will payroll and take on that process for you, but you'll obviously for a fee. And so that was the initial plan for my second company. And then COVID hit.
Okay.
And then everything just shut down.
So you're essentially providing a value-added service then to comply with the aspiration of having FTEs instead of contractors. And is that just
Correct.
Because there's so much risk in being a contractor in the space, or variability in the amount of work available, or how you can compete to get it?
Yeah, and a risk for the clients if they're not insured. If people are insured, it's illegal to not pay someone as an employee when the IRS says they're an employee, right? So we were going to provide that service. And literally we just got the business off the ground and everything got shut down.
Yeah.
But then we needed a pivot, and that's how our live streaming business was born.
Yeah. Let's peel that back a little bit. I mentioned it in the intro. Obviously COVID throws us a curveball, as you've mentioned. What was the mindset going into that? How did you see the opportunity there? Was it something that you were already working on?
Total accident. I met this guy, Jamie, who I had hired to do a show for us in June. HJZ Productions was fortunate enough to hire and produce the West Point graduation. And the director said, I need to have my technical director with me. Wherever show I do, he does. I'm like, yeah, but I know tons of guys at home that haven't been working for 3 months. And he's like, no, Howie, I got to have my guy. So I trusted my gut. I went with his recommendation, and we hired Jamie, and he's become one of my best friends. And also leading into the streaming thing, he had just gotten started into the streaming world during the beginnings of COVID. And we were talking, and after I met him and we talked, I did a lot of research about live streaming and asked him a lot more questions. And it got to thinking, as the summer was going to come to an end, I'm Jewish, and I knew that the holidays for the temple were coming up, that they weren't going to be able to do their services on the Jewish holidays like they normally would because of COVID. So we bounced a lot of ideas off each other. We came up with a plan. I approached the rabbi and I said, this is what we need to do. We'll create videos. We'll live stream it to anyone that wants to see it. And he said, oh, that's awesome. And we created all these videos and made all these productions and streamed to over 1,000 people that normally wouldn't even come to the services. And I got thinking, well, I got the way to monetize this. This is a legit business. And then I got a call from a client that needed to do 9 interviews over a course of 9 weeks, 9 separate places, but the interviewer couldn't leave her house. And I was like, ding, I got it. That was the beginning of the business. We interviewed 9 Major League Baseball players in 9 separate weeks. Our interviewer never left her house. We shipped her. We came up with these camera kits that are inclusive of high-end laptops, super high-end cameras, microphones, ring lights, Ethernet cables, and we ship those around. And because they're our equipment, we can dial into the computer and focus the camera, change the color temperature of the camera, and we bring them over the internet into our production. And we can do everything that way that you would do with a TV truck.
Man, well, when the Jake Blanchard podcast scales a little bit, I'm gonna have to start doing that if
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
get a studio in place. That's
yeah.
holy story. So has that business model taken off then? Like,
Yeah, we have 20 of these camera kits that I've explained, and we've had the awesome fortune to work with Tiger Woods, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, Michael Phelps, just to name a few. And we send our kits out, our computer kits out there, and we dial into them, and we make it so easy. All they have to do is literally plug the computer in, turn it on, and connect it to the internet, and then we take over from there.
wow. What do you think about as COVID starts to, I don't want to say it's winding down. I know there's Delta variants. I know that there's
Right.
seriously some concern about COVID around the country. I don't want to minimize that, but it's hard to ignore the fact that many states, many cities
Mhm.
are coming back in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We're starting to see more live events, public events. Do you feel like that business model of those camera kits are going to continue to persist? And have you thought about how that might change or how it evolves?
Yeah, it definitely will continue because people still don't want to leave their house. They can accomplish more um,
Yeah.
from home, right? Let's say that if let's say you were going to go to you had a conference that had like 1,000 people pre-COVID, right? So now maybe 250 people show up in person, the rest show up virtually. They get the same thing out of the conference, except they don't shake hands with people. They can still network through all these CDN platforms that exist, and they're more productive because they don't have to travel. They're sleeping in their own beds. They're still able to work and attend the conference that they need to go to. So I think it's only gonna kind of just like blow up
No,
and
I love
provide
that. And
more
I was thinking
experience.
about that as well. I mean, what I think it does, as I'm sitting here reflecting, is I think it gives an opportunity for the interviewee or
Mm-hmm.
at least somebody of interest to say yes more, right?
Right.
Like if I've got to plan 3 full days of like, no, the next time I'm in LA, I'll do the interview. Oh, the next time I'll do this or that, as opposed to, yeah, send me the camera kit. Like I'll carve out an hour. Like that makes sense.
And maybe you'll get bigger name people at your event because they don't have to travel.
100%.
And if we could do it virtually, it's only going to provide more jobs because now maybe your in-person event will be a little flashier with more cameras, maybe a screen, because if people are at home, right, they need to be brought in on the screen. So it's going to provide more jobs and maybe a chance for bigger name people to show up to your event.
How has like, because we're talking about some pretty high tech stuff here. Like what's what was it like when you first got into the industry from a technology standpoint versus like now all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur with the business of sending high-end cameras and computers to people's homes, accessing that computer, running this, the world's obviously changed.
Yeah,
Maybe go back to the day one when you got into the industry.
the biggest thing is the internet and the speed of the internet. Although most of the country still has subpar internet, I can't tell you how many times we go to do these productions, and the first thing we do is ask the person what the internet speed is. Oh yeah, I got great internet speed, great internet speed. We check, and they have like a 5 upload speed, which is awful. We need
Okay.
a minimum of a 20 upload speed. We don't really care about the download speed as much because they're uploading their video image, so we care about the upload. And people are just, they think they may have 100 download and that's the best, but their upload speed is 10 or less. And that's the thing we fight with the most is internet speed, and that's what's changed the most from when I started.
And what's and you mentioned some names of folks that have gotten these, these interviewing systems and things like that. Like you've had to have taken a step back at the end of a day at least once and been like, this has been a really odd, interesting like day. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I've
I
gotten
mean,
to see X or Y or Z. Like what? Maybe reflect on that because you've been, you see it with your eyes and you also get the benefit of recording it, right? So like
yeah.
having that is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to a lot of sporting events and see athletes up and close, right? But we did one show with Magic Johnson. He's like, doesn't get any bigger than that, right? Except for
No.
maybe Michael Jordan. And like, I was talking to him through the computer screen. Like, he was just sitting in his hotel with our computer, and we were, you know,
What's up, Magic? I
it
gotta
was
meet that.
like, it
That's cool.
was, for me, it was so freaking cool, you know?
Yeah. 100%. I would geek out in that way as well. I mean, um, you understand that they're people. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, over a long career like you've had, I'm sure that perspective's there, but you take a step back and
Yeah.
you're like, this is still Magic Johnson though. Like
Yeah,
that's,
I've had an awesome fortune to be around like, famous people, but there's only like a few people that, you know, this is really cool. Like, I was at Yankee Stadium one time and shooting an interview, and it was with Reggie Jackson. And so I have the camera here, right? I'm looking through the viewfinder and I'm like, Reggie Jackson. I just look out at the viewfinder. I was just staring at Reggie. I'm like this close to Reggie Jackson. I have no idea what he even said or
yeah,
what, but he was a childhood hero, you know?
I know it, man. That's got to be cool to have dreamed up being like to grow up,
Uh-huh.
checking things out in this space, to go and get educated, being purposeful about the kind of education that you get, to kind of
Yeah.
mature, now to be an entrepreneur here. What's it like teaching the second generation
Oh,
of, or, third or fourth, whatever generation it is in the industry? But for you, I mean, you're passing on knowledge through your courses. You're
mhm.
passing on knowledge through this organization that you've recently created. Like, take me through that.
Yeah. Well, I never thought I would be a teacher. I always had a mentor, when I started out, and then, you know, business coaches and LinkedIn coach. And so I always gravitated towards help for the stuff that I couldn't do. But I feel like, I've had 20 plus years of experience in this business. I knew what my struggles were at the beginning. When I first started out, I called ESPN and asked them for work. And the woman said, so what's your experience? And I told her, she said, you know what, call me back in 5 years. And I didn't let that bother me. I just kind of that lit the match, that lit my fire. And I called it. I put it in my calendar. I called it back 5 years later. I wasn't going to let that deter me. So I want to help. I know what I've been through, so I want to help train the younger generation, because the generation of freelancers in our industry is kind of getting up there. You hold a camera on your shoulder for 20 years, you're going to have back and neck issues. So training the younger generation on how to do things and how we learned, and the right way versus the wrong way, telling them who the clients are, how to get the clients, how to interview, how to talk to people, how to shoot, um, and just pass on the knowledge I have is like the greatest feeling in the world.
That's incredible. And so, like, what's the frequency? Is this a self-serve type program? Is this a university style? Like, what's the delivery model?
Yeah, it's we started out with a 2-day in-person boot camp. The first day we go over, we talk about the business, about showing up on time, about who the clients are, how to go get the clients, how to stay in touch with them on a monthly basis. We talk about the industry in a lot of different ways. And the second day is actually bring in a lot of equipment, and we let the people in the class build the cameras, break down the cameras, coil cable, then we throw the cable on the floor and let them try to coil it again, because it could take a long time to learn how to develop these skills. And we don't want the first time that they show up on site be the first time that they see this equipment. So we want them to have the skills to know how to use the equipment. So when they start their apprenticeship or mentorship, they have a good amount of experience. And then we have a private Facebook group where, we continue the education.
So it's funny that you just talked about like 20 years holding the camera on your back. You can, probably develop some kind of pain or injury, those types of
Yeah.
things. It's interesting that you're probably teaching some stuff around, maybe stretching or I'm getting some chiropractic care. I don't know exactly what you're teaching in that space around camera holding, but go ahead.
yeah, a big part of our course, which I left out, is physical fitness
Yeah.
and healthy lifestyle eating wise.
Yeah, so there's certainly the factors of the ergonomics around these things as well. The thing that sparked in my head when you were talking about things that you wouldn't typically think about preparing somebody for a job in that business is
Mm.
time away from like family or time away like traveling. Do you touch on that in your course, and if you do, could you expand on what your experience has been like spending 20 years on the
Yeah,
road a lot?
yeah, and you don't have to do it the way I did it. If you live, let's say you live in the New York area, right, where there's two baseball teams, two basketball teams, three hockey teams. There's a lot of work. And that's just sports. There's also entertainment work. So there's a lot of people that we hire in the New York area that never get on a plane to travel. Um, I started out living in upstate New York where there was no TV work. So for me, I had to travel and I developed those relationships. And it's hard to get on a plane 4 days a week for 20 something years. Half my life is spent in a hotel room sleeping.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You miss a lot of family functions, time with family, um, and that's not something that I learned in college.
Yeah.
But we definitely touch on it in the course because it's totally realistic. I've lived it, we definitely, without a doubt, talk about the pros and the cons.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I spent about 8 years as a consultant traveling. I consult today through
Mhm.
through my firm, but my day to day was getting on an airplane at least once a week, and
Yeah.
sometimes twice. I mean, I did like 4 years of like 30 to 35 weeks a year traveling, and then I did 2 years of about 46 weeks a year traveling, and it's a lot, man. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on like just kind of erodes your mental state. It's hard to be
Hmm.
present sometimes. It's like you're like warping in and out of all these different worlds. And for you, I mean,
It's so true.
it must be wild because for me, I get off the plane, I go to the hotel, I wait, I go see the client, I go back to the hotel, I fly home. You are going to a building with 60,000 strangers in it, yelling and screaming, and like some of the biggest peaks and valleys of emotions, and then getting on a plane, going home, and working and all that stuff. It's such an interesting concept to me.
Yeah, it's been an awesome experience. It's been a great way to make a living, but also had its downfalls. Being away a lot of sports is on the weekends, especially the bigger events. You miss a lot of family time functions, but that's everything has its issues, right?
Yeah. So taking a step back, another step back, what advice do you give to young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general that are taking their passion for an industry and maybe trying to grow it or to find the unique niches like it sounds like you've done fairly well thus far?
Yeah, some advice is like trust your gut, go with it. Think about the decision, make it, and stick with it, and go with it. You're gonna fail, and the most important thing is learning from failures. Because if you take what you've learned from failure, then it's just it catapults and makes it that much worse. But you don't learn from success; you learn from failure.
100%. 100%. What's a failure along the way for you? You mind sharing?
Yeah. I've started several businesses that didn't work, and and you know, fortunately, I've been able to self-fund the businesses that we have started. Um, so I didn't necessarily lose a lot of money or have to pay back people a lot of money. It just, you know, things didn't work out that way. I learned what didn't work and what works each time. And I got this advice from Badgers is every time you start a business is make sure you have someone to run it with you or for you once you get started. So in your world, playing like the coach and having different quarterbacks for all the different things that you're doing, is like a must, because you can't be everywhere at all times.
Agreed. But from personal experience as well. Very, very much agreed
Yeah.
here. Oh man. So what do you do now? Like you're running these businesses. How did you find hobbies or things to do like outside of, or are you finding more time for things in your personal life now? Like take me through that trajectory.
Yeah, so now that I'm not traveling 4 times a week, I having a routine is like the best thing in the world. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. No one's up for two hours. I work on whatever needs to get done. I also read for a little while in the morning. Then I work out, and then by like 9:30, I've already had 2 hours of workday done, and I just get whatever needs to get done. In the summer, my wife and I walk a few times during the week together, just to spend time together. And having your own business, making your own schedule allows you to do that sort of thing. We have a boat that we like to spend a lot of time on, but we haven't had a lot of good weather in New York, so this summer's been tough. But yeah,
It's been
we
hot,
like to
huh?
spend. Yeah.
Dude, and that's another thing, like the rain or shine, the cameraman business, you are out there in the elements, man. Like
Oh, yeah.
what was it like being in heat like it is right now, sitting behind the
I
camera?
I think the hottest place in the world I've been was Thailand. It
Oh,
was
wow.
like 115, 120 degrees.
What brought you to
Uh,
Thailand?
Wrestling.
Oh, cool.
And the coldest I've ever been was on top of Whiteface Mountain doing a ski event. It was probably minus 20, minus 25. I still have frostbite in these 3 fingers. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, and what do you have to do to camera equipment to make it last in the heat? I'm sorry, I'm just like diving back
No,
into
no,
the
no, no, no,
tactical,
no.
but like
Whatever.
it just kind of, I thought about this for a second. It's like 100 degrees standing outside all day with a camera. How does the camera not break?
Just hope it works sometimes. um, well, and obviously when you're in that sort of heat, right, you can't go inside to shoot something and back outside because the lens will fog. So it's things like that. If you're going to be inside, one day maybe you just shoot everything that you need to shoot inside. The next day, everything you need to shoot outside. It's things like that.
Well, Howie, as we're starting to wind down the conversation here, coming up, um, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned that cross over from broadcasting and find themselves present in life? Like what as you take a step back and look on your rich history of covering all these events, doing all these things, and now having a
Mhm.
perspective of building an empire around it, like what's kind of the biggest lessons learned here?
Some of the biggest lessons I've learned is family always comes first, no matter
Yeah.
what. Family first. There's no event, nothing that's more important than spending time with your family. I know I said that I've missed a lot of family time, but you got to pick and choose. But family always comes first. Um, uh, Other lessons that I learned is being a part of a community of people that is smarter than you is what I try to do, and that's helped me be successful. Always having a mentor or mentors or coaches, because if you think you know everything, then the only way you're going is down.
Yeah.
Um, Seriously. So every day, uh, waking up with gratitude and having a growth mindset.
What a common theme, and I hope folks who listen to the podcast can appreciate it. I mean, so many of the people that I've had on here that have talked about building businesses or reflecting on life, it is, I wake up with gratitude. I'm thankful for the things that I have. I surround myself with positivity. I surround myself with the idea that growth is possible and that I'm a catalyst or a facilitator of it. And then I just do the work. Like,
Yep.
like those 4 or 5 things together, like what a commonality and operating system. So many interesting people like you.
And if you envision it, right, it's not just going to happen, but you got to keep envisioning what you want, because then you're going to subconsciously strive for that. Whether you have to write it down like on a whiteboard or in your notes in your phone, envision what you want, because eventually you will get that.
100%. And so, Howie, where do we find you? Where do we go online? You mentioned you wrote a book. You mentioned you've got some courses. Like, take me, unpack that social media environment or that online environment.
Yeah. LinkedIn at Howard Zales, Instagram at Howie Zales. Our website is viridityentertainment.com. That's VIRIDITY entertainment.com. The broadcastsportscourse.com, and Facebook also at Howie Zales.
I love it. And the name Viridity, what is,
That's an awesome story. So I went to a mastermind with a good friend of ours, Steve Eckhart and Bedros, and he gave us this whole lesson of how when things are going bad, right, and you react like negatively because you're having a bad experience, you're kind of like in the red.
Yeah.
And subsequently, when things are going good and you react so super excited when things are going good, that's called being in the blue. But when you kind of stay even keeled throughout, depending on the situation, it's being in the green. So that's my personality, kind of staying even keeled no matter what the situation. And then my wife and I kind of looked up words for what is green, and viridity is the state of being green.
And then your colors as well are green as well for the business.
Yeah.
How cool
we
is
didn't
that?
want anything we didn't want people to mistake it for like money and things like that. So we were trying to,
That's awesome. That's awesome to and I've heard Steve give that the discussion around I did it when I was Steve touched on it briefly as part of the lessons within the project, the MDK project awesome. That I went through. Now I was petrified of Steve at the time. It's very different when he's been yelling at you for 40 plus hours and then introduces like, hey, you need to stay here and kind of don't let your emotions get to you. Now get the fuck out of here. Let's go. So,
I used to be a member of his gym, so I've known Steve for a while. He's a great dude.
Yeah, awesome guy for sure. All right, well, very cool, man. I'm so excited to have had an opportunity to speak with you today. I mean, again, following this trajectory of being interested in something as a kid, being around it, finding yourself into the industry, being told no, and then, circling back, building a career, then building multiple businesses in the space, and now pouring that knowledge into others is such an honorable, very cool path to have lived. And then also some of the experiences along the way that you've gotten to capture historically. Like that blows my mind. Like you are an archiver of these historical events that are happening, and at the same time getting to see them through your own eyes and build relationships around them. What a cool and fascinating career you've had, Howie.
Thanks, Jake. I'm super grateful to be here, man. I'm so glad I met you in Operation Black Site a few weeks ago, and I'm a total fan of your show.
Thanks, Howie. That means a lot to me, man. And I'm looking forward to coming conversations. I'd love to hear how your business has, post-COVID, how things have grown. I'd love to hear how this, sending out these kits to folks have grown. So really looking forward to upcoming conversations with you, Howie.
Awesome. Me too.
All right, cheers, my man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.